we are moving into the next item on the agenda is the nuclear substances in Canada, a safety performance report for 2013 as outlined in CMD 14M71 and 14M71.A. Understand that Ms. Kavita Murthy will make the presentation. Please proceed.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président et membres de la Commission. Je m'appelle Kavita Murthy, je suis la directrice générale par intérim de la Direction de la réglementation des substances nucléaires. I am also the Director of Accelerators and Class II Facilities Division. Nous vous présentons aujourd'hui le rapport sur le rendement en matière de sûreté des utilisateurs de substances nucléaires, d'équipements réglementés et d'installations nucléaires de catégorie 2 au Canada pour l'année 2013. Nous sommes très fiers de vous présenter ce rapport qui constitue le 5e rapport de sûreté produit jusqu'à maintenant par la CCSN, le précédent rapport nous ayant présenté en 2013. We continue to be the only regulator in the world to be producing such a comprehensive report on the safety performance of nuclear substance and radiation and equipment users in industrial, medical, commercial, research, and academic settings. Allow me to introduce my colleagues who are here with me today. To my left, Mr. David Celeste, project lead for this report, and to his left, Mr. Jeff Sandeman, both of whom will jointly present the report today. Also present are directors and subject matter experts who have contributed to the 2013 industry report. Mr. Peter Funderek, Director, and Mr. Paul Matthews, Licensing Project Officer of the Nuclear Substance and Radiation Device Licensing Division. Mr. Henry Rapsky, Director of the Operations Inspection Division. Mr. Sylvain Fay and Ms. Marissa Devine, Program Officer of the Transport Licensing and Strategic Support Division. Mr. Jeff Sandeman is the Senior Project Officer of the Accelerators and Class II Facilities Division. Ms. Caroline Purvis, Director, I think she's not here today. Mr. Diego Estan, Radiation Protection Officer of the Radiation Protection Division from the Directorate of Environment and Radiation Protection and Assessment. Also from the same directorate, Ms. Melanie Rickard, Acting Director, and Adeline Gao, Dosimetrist of the Radiation and Health Sciences Division. Mr. Paul Dunhertog, Inspector, and Ms. Isabel Tremblay, Program Officer, and Ms. Caroline Purvis, Director, could not be here today. Other CNSC staff members are present here today also to support the project team. As I mentioned earlier, today's presentation will be jointly delivered by David Celeste and Jeff Sandeman. The responsibility for regulatory oversight of the 2 Class 1 particle accelerator facilities in Canada, namely Triumph and Canadian Light Source Incorporated, fall under the mandate of the Directorate of Nuclear Substance Regulation. In keeping with the highly detailed reports presented to the Commission on the safety performance of other Class 1 facilities, staff will present the performance of these 2 facilities in greater detail than other activities in the industry report. Mr. Sandeman will be presenting that part of the report to you today. The presentation will begin with general highlights and overview, then move on to overall sector-specific safety performance, and give you an insight into the safety performance of licensees whose regulatory oversight is the responsibility of the Directorate of Nuclear Substance Regulation. Before I hand over the presentation to David, I wish to draw your attention to errors in the CMD that we noted after the submission deadline had passed. The number of workers in the high energy accelerator subsector is incorrectly reported as 5,716. The actual number of workers is 2,504. Upon discovering the error, we reevaluated the performance results presented in this report. There is no significant impact on any of the results, and most importantly, none of the overall conclusions were affected. On page 17, figure 11, radiation protection inspection ratings, commercial sector in 2013 was 93.2, not 93%. On page 20, figure 14, malfunctioning or damaged devices for 2010 was 39, not 37. On page 28, on figure 17 and the associated text, Operating performance inspection rating for the medical sector in 2013 was 91.7%, not 92.1%. And finally, on page 29, figure 18 in the associated text, radiation protection rating, medical sector 2013 was 81.5%, not 80.5%. We apologize for these errors and we'll make sure they're all corrected before we go into publication.
Sorry to interrupt, but could you point on the first bullet where the numbers are 2504 and said, where is it? Which page number is it actually the correction? I missed it.
It's in Kavita Murthy for the record. It's in the overall numbers section. We'll get to the page in a minute. If you look at figure 8, the 27,733, the total number would drop down. In the academic and research sector on figure 9, the 9,803, that number would be smaller.
That's what I'm saying. I don't see the number 2504 instead of 5716. Okay, where is 5716?
Kavita Murthy for the record, 5716 is on page 43 in figure 26, high energy research particle accelerators.
Okay.
Figure 26.
Got it. Thank you.
Kavita Murthy for the record. You will also have noted that the graphs related to the doses to workers in our presentation look different from the graphs in the CMD. We ran into technical difficulties converting between different releases of the presentation software, and we had to make this change. But the information we present is exactly the same. Je passe la parole maintenant à Mr. Celeste qui fera la présentation en anglais.
I will yield the floor to Mr. Celeste, who will do the presentation in English.
The Commission, David Celeste for the record. The next few slides will provide you with highlights of the 2013 report, as well as details of the major changes made in this year's report. There were just under 2,500 licenses as of December 31st, 2013, with the distribution of licenses among the 4 sectors remaining essentially unchanged since 2009. The 4 sectors are medical, industrial, academic and research, and commercial. There are 2 broad classifications of workers used in this report. In a regulatory context, worker means any person who performs work that is referred to in a license. The term nuclear energy worker is used to distinguish those workers for whom there is a reasonable probability that they may receive a dose greater than the general public limit of 1 millisieverts per year as a result of their work. In reality, most workers in the nuclear sector actually receive radiation doses which are well below the general public dose limit. Any worker not designated as a nuclear energy worker is referred to as an other worker in this report. In 2013, there were a little under 79,500 workers whose doses were monitored. Of these, just over 27,700 were designated as nuclear energy workers, or NEWs. Unless explicitly stated, all references to workers from this point forward in this presentation refers to NEWs. Nuclear substances are used in all walks of life across Canada. The medical sector uses nuclear substances and operates accelerators for diagnostic and therapeutic purposes in hospitals and medical clinics. The industrial sector uses nuclear substances in production facilities or as part of fieldwork or construction. The academic and research sector primarily uses unsealed nuclear substances for biological and biomedical research in universities and research laboratories. Finally, the commercial sector produces, processes, stores, and distributes nuclear substances. The sector also encompasses the calibration of radiation detection instruments, as well as servicing of prescribed equipment. Nuclear substances are packaged and transported within all four sectors. Approximately 1 million packages are safely transported each year in Canada. Of the approximately 1 million packages transported in 2013, only 26 events were reported relating to packaging and transport. All were categorized as low risk. Overall, the transport of nuclear substances is done safely and responsibly. We made several improvements to this edition of the report. Many of them were in response to previous Commission feedback. This edition is the first to provide dose data for the full population of workers whose doses were monitored in 2013. This allows for better representation of the population at hand, better representation of worker doses, and better comparison between yearly data sets. From this point forward, future editions of this report will use all dose data provided to the CNSC. The next major change was to provide an overview of the opportunities the CNSC has created for licensees to interact with the regulator outside the scope of compliance inspections. These opportunities allow CNSC staff to focus on key issues related to the safe use of nuclear substances for specific groups of licensees. In addition to these outreach sessions, the CNSC has established permanent working groups with some of our stakeholders. This includes the Industrial Radiography Working Group and the Canadian Radiation Protection Association Working Group. We have found that better informed licensees typically have better compliance ratings. The third major change is the categorization of reported events by risk. The criteria for this categorization is based on events' radiological, security, and environmental risks. Events are categorized as high, medium, or low risk using a two-step process. Upon receipt of the initial report, an event is categorized based on its potential risk. The final categorization is based on the actual impact or consequences of the event. To sum up, several improvements have been made in this year's report based on previous Commission feedback. This includes each of the first 4 items shown here. The last 2 items, which the Commission identified in 2012, have not been addressed in this year's report for the following reasons. With respect to radiopharmacy worker doses, an analysis was performed which indicated that worker doses were comparable to workers in the diagnostic and therapeutic nuclear medicine subsector. Consequently, segregating radiopharmacy doses was deemed unnecessary. Due to the time constraints, public consultation on the 2013 industry report was not feasible. We are planning to incorporate this in the next edition of the report. I will now move on to provide an overview of the report. The report focuses on the use of nuclear substances and prescribed equipment in medical, industrial, and commercial sectors, as well as for academic and research purposes. The report uses several performance measures to provide an accurate overview of safety in those sectors. Inspection ratings provide a measure of the degree of compliance with regulatory requirements. These ratings are provided for 2 safety and control areas: operating performance and radiation protection. Operating performance refers to the licensee's ability to perform license activities in accordance with specific operational requirements. Radiation protection refers to the safety program every licensee must put in place to ensure that contamination levels and radiation doses received by individuals are monitored, controlled, and maintained as low as reasonably achievable. The final 2 performance measures are doses to workers and reported events. These performance measures are evaluated as part of the compliance verification program. This program uses a risk-informed and performance-based approach. This means that license activities which inherently carry a greater degree of risk, or licensees who have previously demonstrated poor compliance, are subject to greater regulatory oversight in the form of more frequent or more detailed compliance activities. Compliance activities include both on-site inspections and desktop reviews of mandatory compliance reports. In 2013, 1,568 inspections were conducted by CNSC inspectors. The following slides will provide an overview of safety performance across all sectors. Doses to workers continue to be significantly below regulatory limits and comparable to previous years. In general, compliance ratings for operational performance and radiation protection continue to be good, with compliance rating improvements in most sectors. All 150 reported events were assessed by CNSC staff and were categorized as low risk. Overall, the use of nuclear substances in Canada continues to be safe and responsible. Overall, doses to the 27,733 NEWs remain low, and the distribution of doses is comparable to previous years. To date, no worker has exceeded the 5-year dose limit of 100 millisieverts. It is worthwhile noting that the sampling of the reports of previous years did not include all of the doses to workers data. This is why there is a higher number of workers in 2013 when compared to previous years. The differences in the dose distribution between the sectors continue to reflect the nature of the activities within those sectors. The majority of doses above 5 millisieverts continue to be in the industrial sector. 11 workers in this sector received annual doses between 20 and 35 millisieverts. All of these workers were in the industrial radiography subsector. There were 6 cases where, based on dosimetry results, a worker may have exceeded a regulatory dose limit. In all cases, the licensees responded in accordance with the radiation protection regulations. None of the 6 cases resulted in immediate adverse health consequences to the workers. In all cases, the licensees implemented acceptable measures to prevent recurrence. In 2 of the cases, the investigation revealed that non-NEWs had indeed exceeded the 1 millisievert regulatory dose limit. In 3 cases, the investigation conducted by the licensee suggested the doses were non-personal, but did not unequivocally demonstrate this. In the last case, the dose registered on the dosimeter was deemed to be non-personal, and a dose change request was approved by CNSC staff. Overall, doses remain low, with over 99.9% of workers receiving doses below regulatory limits. In general, compliance ratings for operating performance continued positive trends in most sectors. The biggest improvement in compliance ratings was seen in the commercial sector. This increase can be directly correlated to a shift in strategy for inspecting licensees in the servicing subsector. This group of licensees saw their first field inspections in 2012, which explains the drop in compliance in 2012. Licensees now have a greater understanding of regulatory requirements, which has led to a significant improvement in compliance ratings in 2013 when compared to 2012. For inspections that resulted in ratings below requirements, CNSC staff ensured that all non-compliances were properly addressed and corrected. In general, compliance ratings for radiation protection also continued positive trends in all 4 sectors. Non-compliances in this area can range from simple administrative failures, such as poor record keeping, to major issues such as loss of control of radioactive sources. The vast majority of non-compliances in this safety and control area had no immediate impact on the health and safety of workers. All non-compliances were properly addressed and corrected. In the few cases where there was an immediate health and safety risk, the CNSC took additional enforcement actions, which are described next. An order is one of the key enforcement actions used by CNSC. An order must be obeyed by the recipient. Failure to comply can lead to further regulatory measures. Of the 24 enforcement actions issued to licensees, 22 were orders and 2 were administrative monetary penalties. The majority of the orders continued to be issued to the same industrial subsectors as in previous years. The CNSC compliance program in the industrial sector in 2013 paid particular focus on the portable gauge subsector, and as a consequence, most of the orders issued in 2013 were to licensees in this subsector. All orders issued in 2013 are now closed. Details of all enforcement actions, including orders and AMPs, are published on the CNSC's public website. The number of reported events increased from 139 events in 2012 to 150 in 2013. All were assessed by CNSC staff and categorized as low risk. There were 17 reported events involving missing or found nuclear substances. In 9 of the 17 cases, sealed sources or radiation devices were recovered. The remaining cases involve low-risk sources, most of which have decayed to below exemption quantities. The 17 reported events involving breaches of security are in fact safety barrier breaches. These typically involve people entering a restricted work area established prior to the use of a radiation device or prescribed equipment. All of these events were categorized as breaches. Although these events were categorized as breaches of security, all of them were a result of workers not following operational procedures. No attempts were made to illegally gain access to nuclear substances. Here is a comparison of reported events by sector. Reported events generally remain constant in most sectors, with the largest increase in the industrial sector. This was mainly due to an increase in the number of reported events related to safety barrier breaches. Of those, 15 were related to the industrial radiography subsector. This concludes the overall summary. I will now move on to an overview of each of the 4 sectors. Let's begin with the medical sector. The medical sector included 552 licenses and just over 6,900 NEWs. Performance results are provided for all licensees in the sector. 3 subsectors are highlighted in further detail. These are diagnostic and therapeutic nuclear medicine, in which unsealed nuclear substances are administered to patients to diagnose and treat medical problems. Radiation therapy, which uses external beams of radiation or radioactive sources to treat cancers. And veterinary nuclear medicine, which uses techniques similar to those employed in human nuclear medicine. Doses to workers in the medical sector remain low. Compliance rating for operating performance and radiation protection continue to be good, with increases in compliance ratings demonstrated in both areas. No enforcement actions were issued in 2013. Here is a breakdown of doses to workers in the medical sector. Almost all radiation therapy workers continue to receive doses below 1 millisieverts. Nuclear medicine doses are typically higher due to the need to handle unsealed radioactive sources. Despite this, the vast majority of nuclear medicine workers continue to receive doses less than 5 millisieverts. In total, there were 25 reported events in the medical sector. Most of the reported events were related to spills or contamination during the handling of unsealed nuclear substances. This is to be expected given the number of medical procedures in Canada involving unsealed nuclear substances. It is worth noting that the number of reported spills has remained constant since 2011. All reported events were assessed by CNSC staff and categorized as low risk. Now we move on to the industrial sector. The industrial sector included 1,440 licenses and almost 9,500 NEWs. Performance results are provided for all licensees included in this sector. 4 subsectors are highlighted in further detail. These are industrial radiography, which involves the use of exposure devices for the non-destructive examination of materials such as pipelines. Portable nuclear gauges, which are typically used to measure moisture and density in soil and the compaction of asphalt in construction. Fixed nuclear gauges, which are used to monitor production processes in many industries such as paper mills. And oil well logging, where sealed sources or compact accelerators are sent on cables down very deep, narrow boreholes to analyze the geological structure and composition of the bedrock to help locate oil. Doses to workers in the industrial sector remained low. Compliance ratings for operating performance and radiation protection continue to be good, with an increase in compliance demonstrated in radiation protection. Although there was an increase in enforcement actions, this was mainly due to a change in the inspection program for the portable gauge subsector. More details are provided on a further slide. Here's a breakdown of doses to workers in the industrial sector. The vast majority of workers in all subsectors continue to have doses below 5 millisieverts. As noted earlier, industrial radiography workers continue to incur the highest doses, with 11 workers receiving between 20 and 35 millisieverts in 2013. CNSC inspectors issued 22 orders in 2013. As noted previously, most of the orders issued in 2013 were in the portable gauge subsector. Due to the large number of orders in that subsector, CNSC staff have also developed a focused outreach strategy to clarify regulatory requirements and to deal with systemic non-compliances. This is similar to the strategy staff successfully used in the industrial radiography subsector. Staff believe that positive results from these activities is already evident in the fact that as of November 2014, only 3 orders have been issued to the portable gauge licensees. If this trend is maintained, it will be the lowest number of orders in this subsector since 2008. In total, there were 88 reported events in the industrial sector. All 88 reported events were assessed by CNSC staff and categorized as low risk. More than half of all these were related to malfunctioning or damaged devices. Examples include portable gauges which were hit or run over by vehicles at construction sites, or fixed gauges that were damaged after a drop or an impact. There were no reports of sealed sources leaking following these events. In 16 of the 17 safety barrier breaches discussed previously were in this sector. All 16 were a result of workers not following operational procedures. Next is the academic and research sector. The academic and research sector included 232 licenses and just over 9,800 NEWs. Performance results are provided for all licensees in the subsector. 2 subsectors are highlighted in further detail. These are laboratory studies and consolidated use of nuclear substances, in which universities, colleges, and government laboratories use nuclear substances for research in the fields of biology and biomedicine, and high-energy research particle accelerators, which conduct research activities that range from subatomic physics and astrophysics to applied research such as investigating alternate methods for medical isotope production. Doses to workers remain low in the academic and research sector. Compliance ratings for operating performance and radiation protection continue to be good, with increases in compliance ratings demonstrated in both areas. No enforcement actions were issued in 2013. Here's a breakdown of doses to workers in the academic and research sector. Almost all workers continue to receive doses below 1 millisieverts. In total, there were 9 reported events in the academic and research sector. Just under half of the reported events were related to spills or contamination incidents. 3 events were related to safety system malfunctions at high-energy research particle accelerator facilities. These will be discussed in the section on high-energy accelerators. All 9 reported events were assessed by CNSC staff and categorized as low risk. Next, we cover the commercial sector. The commercial sector included 256 licenses and just over 1,500 nuclear energy workers. Performance results are provided for all licensees in this sector. 5 subsectors are highlighted in further detail. These are isotope production accelerators, which are used for the production of isotopes in diagnostic medical imaging, processing of nuclear substances for industrial, medical, and research purposes, servicing of prescribed equipment, which includes installation and repair of radiation devices, as well as the installation and removal of sealed sources. Distribution of nuclear substances, which involves the operation of specialized facilities that possess nuclear substances and radiation devices for sale and redistribution to other licensees such as laboratories and hospitals, and calibration, which uses nuclear substances for calibration of radiation detectors. Doses to workers remain low in the commercial sector. Compliance ratings for operating performance and radiation protection continue to be good, with increases in compliance ratings demonstrated in both areas. No enforcement actions were issued in 2013. Here is a breakdown of doses to workers in the commercial sector. The vast majority of workers in all subsectors continued to have doses below 5 millisieverts. In total, there were 28 reported events in the commercial sector. More than 2/3 of the reported events were related to minor contamination incidents during the handling of unsealed sources at processing facilities. All 28 reported events were assessed by CNSC staff and categorized as low risk. For high-energy research particle accelerators, I will now turn the presentation over to Mr. Jeff Sandeman.
Jeff Sandeman, Senior Project Officer, Director of Nuclear Substance Regulation. Within the academic and research sector, there are 2 high-energy particle accelerator facilities which are subject to additional compliance oversight due to their size and complexity. These are Triumph Accelerators in Vancouver and the Canadian Light Source in Saskatoon. Triumph actually operates 7 different accelerators on its site, and it's Canada's national laboratory for nuclear and particle physics research and related sciences. Triumph is also a major producer of radioisotopes used for medical diagnostic procedures. CLS operates a synchrotron facility which is used for experimental research in a wide range of fields, including biology, materials research, atomic and molecular science, and electronics. The compliance rating for all 13 safety and control areas applicable to these facilities are summarized here. These ratings are based on the compliance activities conducted in 2013, including inspections, review of events reported by each facility, and a review of the annual compliance reports submitted by each licensee. While compliance in most safety and control areas was satisfactory, some deficiencies were noted in management system and human performance management programs at Canadian Light Source, and the fitness for service safety and control area at Triumph. The basis for the below expectations ratings in these areas are discussed in more detail on the following slides. Each facility was inspected once in 2013. Each inspection involved a multi-person, multidisciplinary team from the CNSC, which enables an inspection of multiple safety and control areas. The main focus of each inspection is indicated on this slide. Please note that there's a typo on this slide. There were 8 corrective actions required as a result of the inspection at Triumph, not 7. 5 of these have since been addressed satisfactorily by the licensee. Of the remaining 3 items, 2 are long-term improvements to the training program, which are expected to be completed by the end of 2014. A follow-up inspection will be scheduled early in 2015 to assess implementation. The final corrective action relates to one of the reported incidents. An acceptable action plan has been submitted and progress is being monitored by CNSC staff. For Canadian Light Source, 13 corrective actions were required as a result of the inspection. The below expectations grade for the management systems and human performance management safety and control areas at CLS is a direct result of the findings of the inspection. 12 correction actions have now been satisfactorily addressed by the licensee, including the last remaining management system action shown on this slide, which was closed very recently. The remaining items is a long-term improvements in implementation of a systematic approach to training for all personnel. Again, satisfactory progress has been demonstrated to date, and CNSC staff continue to monitor progress via mandatory periodic reporting by the licensee. The collective dose to all staff working at Triumph in 2013 was 144.9 person millisieverts, a reduction of more than 25% from 195.1 person millisieverts in 2012. This continues a decade-long trend, during which collective doses to Triumph staff has decreased by 66% since 2004. Staff doses are now at the lowest levels they have been since 1979. At CLS, the collective dose to all staff, as well as the individual maximum and average doses, remained low in 2013. The maximum and average doses to both nuclear energy workers and to other workers were all well below the general public limit of 1 millisievert per year. In 2013, there were 3 incidents reported by these facilities related to the malfunction of safety systems. CLS has 24 radiation monitoring stations on the site. Each of these stations operates independently and has alarms which sound if the dose rates above a preset threshold are detected. The radiation monitor signals are also sent to the control room. The incident involved the malfunction of a device which controls the signal sent to and received from 4 of these monitors. The controller communication error was detected by the operator and corrected immediately. The two incidents reported at Triumph both related to the malfunction of a safety component of the extensive array of systems that are used to contain and monitor the very low-level releases of gaseous nuclear substances via the nuclear exhaust system. Such releases have remained relatively constant at about 1% of the derived release of the derived release limit per year over the past decade. That's equivalent to a dose of about 0.01 millisieverts, or 1% of the general public dose limit to the most exposed person. In one case, a system designed to contain xenon gas, which is used in the production of the medical isotope iodine-123, failed to fully contain the gas when the target window ruptured. Approximately 10% of the total activity was released via the nuclear exhaust, which resulted in a potential maximum dose of less than 0.005% of the general public dose limit. In the second event, a new calibration technique used by Triumph revealed that one of the nuclear exhaust stack monitors had drifted out of calibration, although it was still functional. Triumph concluded that the monitor may have been out of calibration for several years, resulting in underreporting of emissions from that particular section of the nuclear exhaust. Subsequent reanalysis of the previous 5 years' annual airborne release monitoring results indicated that the average annual release over that period still remained below 1% of the derived release limit. In both cases, Triumph implemented corrective actions, which are acceptable to CNSC staff, to prevent recurrence of these types of incidents. However, as a result of the incidents, a below expectations grade was warranted for the fitness for service safety and control area in 2013. The operating licenses for both Triumph and CLS include a license condition handbook, which defines the key documents and compliance criteria related to the facility. Authority to make changes to the license conditions handbook has been delegated to a designated officer with the provision that such changes must not reduce the overall level of safety for the facility. For Triumph, multiple changes and updates were combined into 2 sets of revisions to the license conditions handbook in 2013. The majority of these changes were administrative in nature and deal with procedural updates and improvements. There was also 2 minor facility design alterations, both of which were necessary to accommodate new experimental facilities being built on the site. There were no changes to the license condition handbook for the Canadian Light Source in 2013. Finally, both sites continued to expand their operations to incorporate new facilities for both research and medical isotope production. At CLS, the Medical Isotope Project, or MIP, involves the construction of a new high-power electron linear accelerator facility, incorporating a Canadian-made commercial accelerator system to investigate an alternative technology for producing technetium-99m, the world's most commonly used medical isotope. Construction of the facility was completed early in 2013, and an operating license to permit commissioning tests on the accelerator was issued under designated officer authority at that time. Commissioning tests were ongoing for the remainder of 2013. The Advanced Rare Isotope Laboratory, or ARIEL project, at Triumph is also now well underway. This project involves developing a high-power superconducting electron accelerator, which is being custom designed and built by Triumph to expand Canada's abilities to produce and study isotopes for physics and medicine. Facility construction was largely completed in 2013, and in December, a license was issued to test the first major component of the accelerator. Again, this license was issued under the authority of a designated officer. So, in conclusion, both Triumph and CLS continue to operate safely and in accordance with their licensing basis in 2013. While some non-compliances were noted during inspection of these facilities, they did not present an immediate risk to the health and safety of persons or to the environment. The majority of the corrective actions required to address these non-compliances have been completed. A few longer-term actions are still underway, and progress is being monitored by CNSC staff. Similarly, the incidents reported by these 2 facilities in 2013 did not result in any adverse radiological consequences to persons or the environment. The ARIEL and MIP projects at Triumph and CLS, respectively, continue to progress, and the initial operating licenses for testing of these accelerators were issued for both facilities in 2013. Ongoing licensing and inspection of these 2 new facilities will be a regulatory priority in 2014. I will now turn the presentation back to Mrs. Kavita Murthy for her concluding remarks.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, David. Kavita Murthy for the record. Staff conclude that licensees continue to maintain appropriate safety programs, which include appropriate measures to protect the health and safety of Canadians as well as the environment. Licensee operations are safe with adequate regard for health, safety, and security. Licensees ensure that there is acceptable protection in place for the health and safety of persons with respect to ionizing radiation. Doses to workers remain low. Overall, the use of nuclear substances in Canada continues to be safe and responsible. This concludes staff's presentation of the CNSC staff report on the use of nuclear substances in Canada. We are now available to answer any questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.